So let's say the meta question that I posed to myself on the top of the question of Yorgos was, okay, I have never claimed to be activist research indeed, because my experience is different, because I started in Naples as activist against water privatization and the waste mismanagement. In those periods I was not at all a researcher. I was studying mainstream economics and market value. So I was training myself as a broker, let's say. Then, out of my experience as activist, I decided to change completely my interest, and I decided to have a PhD, even if I won a PhD in a mainstream department, always of economics, selling something that was not real my project, no? Because in those periods I was starting to think that probably to be interested in the water privatization process could be like a very interesting topic for my research, but I couldn't sell this in this department. So after 1 year and a half, I met Claudio in Leipzig for ecological economics conference, and Claudio started to say, no, Barcelona is a wonderful place where there are a lot of things going on, where you can really be based and try to develop your own research. And he said, okay, please invite me when you can. And I think after 2-3 months, he sent me an email and said, okay, Mario Giampietro has a position for you. If you want to come as visiting researcher, you can come. So I came here and I escaped the economics department. Indeed, after 1 year and a half of visiting here, I present my dissertation and they said, okay, this is not economics at all. We understand that more or less you are doing something that is interesting for other community, and we also understand that you are not claiming anything in this department. So you are going away. We give you the let's say the doctorate because you are going away, no? And say thank you very much. Say okay, goodbye. But now they won a project about environmental crime. And they sell to the commission that they can say something about waste illegal disposing in Italy, and they cannot. But they write to me, no, because they know that I'm publishing on this topic and I'm an activist there. So probably they will claim me as one of their PhD students in the past. So I mean, in this sense, the first answer that I will say, I've never done activist research as I understand how the people that are claiming that they are doing activist research. Normally they have let's say a clear plan as a researcher, no, and going in a conflict or going in a social movement or going in a community and studying, we will say, no, in which kind of methods or with different kind of tools to study this, no? And my biography is on the other side, no? I started as activist, and then when I went to the when I decided to have a PhD, I reflect on this activism, but I couldn't claim in those periods to be an activist at all. Otherwise, if I will do, the people that are acting in Naples will kill me. No, at all, because then we can also discuss when you are an activist.
Claim that you were a researcher.
I can I cannot claim during my PhD. I cannot claim because I was here, for example. And if I went to Naples and say, okay, I'm still an activist, they will kill me because I mean, for a lot of people to be an activist means to stay here in the conflict on barricades and so on and so forth. So we can discuss when you can claim and if you can claim without your community to be an activist or not. This is, I think, part of. I will stop here just to have this kind of reflection on my take on activist research and my personal.
I was thinking to answer Yorgo's question because I didn't know how to answer them, so I tried. But action research is something I really not sure what is. I'm honest. But as the sound goes, it's kind of very pragmatic, and it's action. Activist is like an ism, there is this ism. So it's loaded with the ideological content. And so if we do science with ideological content, then we are in a potentially dangerous zone. So if we want to claim to be, if we claim or not, but if we feel like we are activist researchers, then we have to be honest when we write, to claim our ideological position. It does not occur in the mainstream, even though we could observe that the mainstream, particularly economic mainstream, is loaded with ideologies. I managed to publish my first paper in Atenea Digital, which is the open access peer-reviewed journal by my PhD supervisor, Lupicinio Iniguez, by saying that, as Yorgos announced before, my participant observation in the squatters movement is in fact even more, because I am a participant in the first place. Because when Jesus Ramos told me, hey, I came and lived here, I didn't know, I just started my master. A few months later, I thought, oh, it would be interesting to study this experience here in Can Mas Deu because it's ecological economics. And the rural environment in Alta Garrocha, here in Catalonia, which is even farther away, is even more ecological economics. And so I wrote a kind of participant observing. And I thought about, okay, how scientific is this? If science from Galileo and the scientific method is kind of no interference of the observer into the reality which is observed, then here we are on the total opposite. And I wrote in the paper, probably this is at the border of scientific recognition. And I try to be as honest and as open as possible. And of course, targeting the prominent journal, of course, would have been able to publish in other kind of mainstream economic journals or whatever else. But in this kind of journal, then I managed to publish. And then what can we have in the middle? Perhaps you don't need to be like an activist in your own place, and then you can also study and research on things where you have kind of interesting connections, or particularly connection with collectivities. So there is a participatory action research, which is interesting because it's doing action research but with groups that are interested in kind of social change or kind of some making the difference. And you come in together, in kind of a more horizontal way. You present yourself as the researcher, which could bring benefits for both. For them, could also be useful to have some researchers that could facilitate processes as well as spreading the voice in certain more academic circles about some participatory issues, that could be more or less political as well. We could think that political is with the activism, or perhaps it could be like a participatory activism research. In general, it's called activist research. I think already includes the fact that if you are an activist, you're likely part, or at least it's my opinion, you're likely part of a group, of a collective, a plurality of people who are interested in some change.
Yeah, on this aspect, I mean, I read the paper that he wrote in 2006. He published, and I feel like I recognize myself in the same kind of dilemma, let's say, So the idea was, okay, I can buy from the anthropology studies that I'm doing participatory observation, but still I think it's to be honest, it's not exactly what I did, because first I started as participant, and then I start to observe, and I was not focused on the let's say in the action of as activist to find something for my research. No, I was participating in a conflict, in an urban conflict. So on this side, it was a sort of playing with words, even if I cannot play very well with English, to explain, let's say, the reader that what was really important for me. Indeed, I used this definition, this label, in the first time in a paper I wrote about it. It was called the autobiography of a conflict, of an environmental conflict. So I was describing the differentiation inside the community of activists in Naples. And this is also interesting because one of the questions is related to militants. And during this reflection, I start to realize that, for example, for me, the militants are not good people. I like the companions. Indeed, in part of this, let's say, try to have a typology of activists inside the community of activists in Naples. I saw that there were, as always, the militant, and I realized that militants are able to answer to the question of Lenin, no? That Lenin posed to himself, what has to be done. But they are not able, often, they don't reflect to how has to be done. And I think this question go together with the companion, no? Normally, this idea of companion are people inside the activist movement where then they don't share just ideology, but they want to also share day by day construction of relation and so on and so forth. For example, for me, cannot be possible a good summer school without a good convivial dinner, and this is why we organized this yesterday. No, I think that this idea of how you want to get there is also important on where you want to get. So let's say the meta question that I posed to myself on the top of the question of Yorgos was, okay, I have never claimed to be activist research indeed, because my experience is different, market value. So I was training myself as a broker, let's say. Then out of my experience as activist, I decided to change completely my interest, and I decided to have a PhD, even if I won a PhD in a mainstream department, always of economics, selling something that was not real my brand, because I started in Naples as activist against water privatization and the waste mismanagement. In those periods I was not at all a researcher. I was studying mainstream economics and